Hello, dear listener. Welcome to Calm Cloud Chronicles, where imagination drifts and stories unfold. Sit back, relax, and let the journey begin. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more soothing tales. The Whispering Sands of Egypt. Under a starlit sky, where the heavens seem to merge with the golden sands, a humble artisan named Khepri walks quietly along the Nile. His days are spent carving intricate hieroglyphs into limestone, his chisel narrating tales of gods and kings. By night, he seeks solace under the vast expanse of stars, their soft light mirroring the calm flow of the great river. Tonight, the desert air carries a gentle breeze, whispering ancient secrets through the dunes. Khepri feels the weight of the cosmos pressing gently upon him, not in burden, but in quiet connection. He climbs a low dune and sits, gazing at the horizon where the pyramids rise like eternal sentinels. They glow faintly in the moonlight, their silhouettes wrapped in mystery. As he closes his eyes, the soft rustle of the papyrus plants nearby fills his ears, mingling with the distant calls of nocturnal creatures. He imagines himself traveling with the stars, riding the celestial bark of Ra, witnessing the endless dance of creation and renewal. In this moment, time seems to pause. The artisan breathes deeply, the desert's whispers harmonizing with the steady rhythm of his heart. He feels at peace, his soul anchored to the sands, yet free to drift among the stars. As Khepri sits atop the dune, his thoughts drift to his craft. Each hieroglyph he carves tells a story, of gods that walk among mortals, of great kings and queens whose names are meant to echo through eternity. He feels pride in his work, but also humility. His hands may shape the stone, but it is the story itself that carries the power to endure. The moon climbs higher in the sky, bathing the desert in a silver glow. Khepri notices a faint sound carried on the breeze, like a melody woven from the whispers of the sands. At first, he thinks it must be his imagination, but the sound grows clearer, a rhythmic hum, like a heartbeat of the earth itself. Compelled by the mysterious tune, he descends the dune and walks towards its source. His bare feet sink into the cool sand, the grains shifting softly beneath him. As he approaches the edge of the Nile, the melody grows louder, yet it remains gentle and soothing, as though the desert is singing him a lullaby. Khepri kneels by the water's edge, where the papyrus reeds sway gently in the breeze. In the moonlit reflection of the river, he sees something unexpected. A figure begins to take shape in the shimmering surface, a woman, serene and radiant, her form cloaked in starlight. She seems to rise from the water itself, her presence both otherworldly and comforting. "Be at peace, child of the sands," she says, her voice as soft as the Nile's current. "You're a weaver of time, your hands shaping the threads of eternity. Do not doubt the power of your work, for through it, the names of your people shall live forever." Khepri is awestruck. He cannot find words to respond, but the figure does not seem to require them. She smiles gently, her gaze filled with endless wisdom, before slowly dissolving back into the rippling water. Left with a sense of awe and serenity, Khepri remains by the river, listening to the melody that now feels like a part of him. The artisan knows that tomorrow, when he returns to his work, his hands will be guided by a newfound purpose. For in the quiet of the desert night, he has heard the voice of eternity, and it whispers through the sands. As dawn approaches, the desert begins to shift, the cool sands gradually warming as the sun reaches out across the horizon. Khepri rises from his place by the riverbank, his mind still swirling with the encounter from the night before. The melody from the sands and the figure's words have etched themselves deeply into his heart, an echo of eternity he cannot forget. He gathers his tools and begins his walk toward the construction site of Pharaoh's tomb. The landscape is tranquil, with the morning light casting long shadows over the dunes. Along the way, Khepri notices a pair of ibis birds gliding effortlessly across the sky, their silhouettes painted in hues of gold and amber. Their presence feels significant, a celestial nod to the mysteries he has witnessed. When he reaches the site, Khepri takes his place among the other artisans. Though the hum of chisels and mallets fills the air, Khepri works with a unique serenity, his hands flowing with newfound precision and grace. He chooses a block of limestone and begins to carve, a depiction of Ra's celestial bark traveling through the stars. As he works, the whispers from the sands return, almost imperceptible amidst the noise around him. The melody now seems to guide his hands, infusing the hieroglyphs with a deeper meaning, as though they are imbued with the voice of the desert itself. Khepri's fellow artisans begin to notice his remarkable skill, the fluidity with which he carves, and the uncanny beauty of his designs. "You are guided by the gods," one of them remarks, half in awe, half in jest. Khepri smiles faintly, but says nothing. He knows it was not a jest. By evening, the tomb's progress is celebrated with offerings to the gods. Khepri stands before the carved stone, admiring his work. It feels alive, as if each symbol might unravel its story when the time is right. As the sun sets and the desert cools again, Khepri reflects on the cycles of life and death, and the eternal dance that weaves them together. That night, beneath the stars, Khepri dreams, not of pharaohs or pyramids, but of endless constellations spinning in harmony. In his dream, he sees the figure from the Nile once more, her starlit form radiant and infinite. "Your work carries the soul of your people, Khepri," she says. "Through you, their stories will endure beyond the sands, beyond the stars, and into the embrace of eternity." When Khepri awakes, the melody is still faintly ringing in his ears, a gift from the desert, a reminder of the whispers that guide him. For now, his path is clear, and his purpose is anchored. He is not merely an artisan, he is a guardian of the timeless tales that weave the fabric of humanity. As Khepri continues his work, each stroke of his chisel feels guided by something greater than himself. His carvings do not merely depict stories, they are bridges between the mortal and the eternal. Each hieroglyph is carefully chosen to convey a deeper spiritual truth. On one panel, he carves the image of Ra's celestial bark traveling across the sky. The solar disk rests atop the great god's head, surrounded by serpents coiled in protective formation. To Khepri, this scene represents the journey of the soul, guided by divine light, navigating the challenges of existence with wisdom and resilience. The curved lines of the bark seem to flow endlessly, a reminder that life, like the Nile, is a cycle of renewal. Another section of the tomb features carvings of lotus blossoms unfurling under the sun's rays. The lotus, rising pure and untouched from the muddy waters, symbolizes rebirth and spiritual enlightenment. It is a subtle, yet profound, message to those who will enter the tomb, that from the trials of life, the soul may emerge cleansed and whole, ascending to the realm of the gods. Khepri also works on a depiction of the scales of Ma'at, where a feather is weighed against the human heart. This image serves as a silent testament to the moral journey of every individual. Through his carving, Khepri seeks to capture the delicate balance of life and the cosmic order upheld by truth, harmony, and justice. Throughout his work, Khepri integrates small, intricate patterns, waves, stars, and ankhs. To the untrained eye, these might seem decorative, but to those who understand, they are imbued with meaning. The waves represent the endless flow of the Nile, the giver of life. The stars mirror the heavens, where the soul hopes to dwell eternally. The ankh, the key of life, ties it all together, a symbol of the soul's immortality and the divine energy that sustains the world. With every carving, Khepri feels a sense of communion with the sands and stars around him. The act of creation becomes a prayer, his chisel echoing the sacred rhythms of the universe. He believes that his work not only honors the pharaoh but also serves as a guide for future generations, a map of spiritual truths, etched into stone for eternity. Khepri's next masterpiece is a depiction of the celestial ladder ascending from the mortal realm to the heavens. Each rung is carved with profound precision, representing stages of spiritual growth. The first is adorned with lotuses symbolizing awakening, the middle rungs feature sacred scarabs embodying transformation, and the upper rungs depict stars, guiding the soul to the eternal embrace of the cosmos. To Khepri, the ladder reflects the ascent of the human spirit toward enlightenment, a journey of perseverance and faith. On another panel, Khepri inscribes a celestial map, meticulously detailing the constellations that govern the heavens. The map is encircled by the Ouroboros, a serpent swallowing its own tail, representing the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. In the serpent's eye, Khepri carves a miniature ankh, symbolizing the divine force that animates the cycle. The map serves as both a guide for the departed soul and a reminder to the living that they are part of a cosmic design. In a quieter corner of the tomb, Khepri creates a scene of the Nile in its annual flood. The waters teem with symbols of fertility and abundance. Fish to signify life's sustenance, spiraling waves representing the eternal flow, and reeds shaped subtly to form the hieroglyph for prosperity. Hidden among the reeds, Khepri carves a tiny Shen ring, a circle symbolizing infinity and divine protection. He sees this panel as a tribute to the sacred river that sustains both the body and spirit of his people. Khepri also begins carving a secret message into the tomb, a message meant not for the pharaoh, but for those who may one day rediscover it. In one corner, he integrates a pattern of interlocked triangles, a subtle nod to the concept of duality, life and death, light and darkness, mortal and divine. Beneath this, he carves a pair of open palms facing upward, a gesture of offering and humility. Within the palms, he inscribes a single word in a script only he knows, a word that means unity. It is his quiet hope that those who find it will be reminded of the interconnectedness of all beings. Finally, Khepri crafts a panel dedicated to the stars' descent into the mortal plane. The stars are depicted not as distant points of light, but as radiant figures descending from the heavens, carrying ankhs and lotus blossoms. Around them, Khepri carves waves and spirals, as if the stars' energy flows like the Nile into the earthly realm. This scene signifies the belief that divinity exists not only above but within the mortal world, and that each individual carries a fragment of the eternal light. As he steps back to observe his work, Khepri is filled with a quiet reverence. He knows these carvings are more than decoration, They are a sacred language, a silent hymn etched in stone, meant to endure for millennia. They are a gift to the pharaoh, to his people, and to the unseen presence that whispers through the sands. For Khepri, carving is not simply labor. It is a sacred act, an offering to the gods and a dialogue with the eternal. From the time he was a boy, watching his father and uncles carve stone for temples and tombs, he sensed that their work was more than just chiseling shapes. It was weaving threads between the mortal and divine realms. He remembers the first time he held a chisel, the weight of the tool in his small hands filling him with both awe and responsibility. His father's voice still echoes in his memory. The stone remembers, Khepri. What we carve lasts longer than our lives. It is how we speak to those who come after us, and how we honor those who came before. These words became a guiding principle for him, a belief that through his carvings, he could connect with the ancestors and leave whispers for the unborn. This belief deepened when Khepri experienced a life-changing moment as a young apprentice. One sweltering afternoon at the quarry, he uncovered a fossil embedded in the limestone, a delicate shell, its intricate ridges preserved perfectly in stone. Khepri marveled at how something so fragile could endure for countless millennia, carried through time by the enduring embrace of the earth. That shell became a symbol for him, a reminder that his own carvings, though seemingly small and fleeting, might one day stand as a testament to humanity's journey. As he matured into a master artisan, Khepri began to see his craft as a form of meditation, a way to harmonize with the divine rhythms of the universe. Each cut of the chisel was deliberate, echoing the pulse of the Nile and the hum of the desert winds. He often worked in silence, save for the whispers of the sands and the steady sound of his tool against the stone. In these quiet moments, he felt a connection to something vast and eternal, as though he were not merely carving stone but channeling the will of the cosmos. Khepri also had an intimate relationship with the symbols he carved. The ankh, for instance, was not just a representation of life to him, it was a reminder of the divine spark within every being. The lotus was more than a flower, it was the promise that even in the murky depths of human struggle, enlightenment could bloom. Every glyph carried a story, a lesson, a fragment of the divine. To Khepri, his carvings were not static images, they were alive, pulsing with the wisdom of the gods and the whispers of the desert. But there was one carving that held the deepest significance for Khepri. Hidden near the base of Pharaoh's tomb, in a place unlikely to be seen by others, he etched a single scarab beetle, carrying a sun disk upon its back. The scarab was Khepri's namesake, a symbol of rebirth and transformation. By carving it, he was both signing his work and embedding a piece of his soul into the tomb. It was his way of ensuring that he, too, would be part of the eternal journey, woven into the fabric of time and eternity, as inseparable as the grains of sand in the desert. For Khepri, his carvings were not just his legacy, they were his prayer, his gratitude, and his dialogue with eternity. The whispering sands of Egypt were his teachers, and the stars were his silent witnesses. With every stroke of his chisel, Khepri sought to honor the sacred bond between the earth and the heavens, leaving behind a story that would transcend both. Among the other artisans, Khepri is known as the soul of the stone. While many respect his skill, they are even more captivated by the almost sacred reverence with which he approaches his craft. To them, his work is not just beautiful, it feels alive, imbued with a quality that defies explanation. They whisper among themselves that Khepri must surely be favored by the gods, his hands guided by unseen forces. One elder artisan, a man named Neferhotep, often pauses in his own work to watch Khepri carve. Neferhotep has spent decades chiseling stone, yet he cannot help but feel like a student in Khepri's presence. "You carve as though you were speaking directly to the gods," he tells Khepri one evening. Khepri, ever modest, only smiles and says, "The stone speaks first. I simply listen." The laborers who transport the stone blocks also hold Khepri in high regard. Though their work is physically grueling, they find moments of solace in observing the images Khepri brings to life. One young laborer, a boy no older than 15, often lingers near Khepri's workspace, his eyes wide with wonder. "Your carvings make me feel like I'm in the presence of something eternal," he says shyly one day. Khepri places a reassuring hand on the boy's shoulder and replies, "You are, my friend. Eternity is within all of us." These stones simply help us remember. Even the overseers, who are usually preoccupied with schedules and quotas, are not immune to the power of Khepri's work. One overseer, a stern man named Beck, finds himself lingering longer than usual at the site. Though he would never admit it, he is deeply moved by Khepri's depiction of the scales of Ma'at. One evening, when the workers have gone, Beck traces the carved lines with his fingers, feeling an unexpected sense of peace. He quietly resolves to live a life more in harmony with the values the scales represent. Beyond the site, whispers of Khepri's devotion begin to spread. Priests from the nearby temple come to see his work, intrigued by the spiritual depth conveyed in the hieroglyphs. One priest, draped in white linen and bearing a ceremonial staff, approaches Khepri with a solemn expression. "Your carvings are not merely art," the priest says. "They are a form of prayer. You honor the gods with every stroke of your chisel." For Khepri, these reactions are both humbling and affirming. He does not seek praise, but he is grateful that his work resonates with others. It strengthens his belief that his carvings are more than stone, they are vessels of connection, carrying whispers from the sands and stars to the hearts of those who behold them. As days turn into weeks, Khepri and the young laborer, whose name is Setka, form a bond that feels almost familial. Setka, despite his youth and station, has an insatiable curiosity about the artisan's work. He often stays late after the others have left, watching Khepri's chisel dance across the stone with reverence in his eyes. One evening, as the moon rises over the Nile, Setka approaches Khepri with a question that has been weighing on his heart. "Master Khepri," he begins hesitantly, "how do you hear the whispers of the sands?" "I wish I could hear them too." Khepri pauses, setting down his tools, and gestures for Setka to sit beside him. "The sands are always speaking," he says softly. "But to hear them, you must first quiet your own thoughts. Listen not with your ears, but with your heart. What do the sands say to you, Setka?" Quote. The boy closes his eyes and breathes deeply, trying to attune himself to the world around him. After a moment, he opens his eyes and looks at Khepri with a faint smile. They say, to keep moving forward, even when the path is unclear. Khepri's face lights up with a warm smile. "Yes, Setka. The sands are wise. They remind us that every grain, no matter how small, plays a role in shaping the dunes." Inspired by Khepri's teachings, Setka begins to find ways to express himself. He gathers small pieces of limestone discarded at the site and carves simple shapes, lotus petals, stars, and waves. Though rough, his carvings hold a charm born from sincere effort. Khepri notices Setka's burgeoning talent and offers gentle guidance, teaching him the delicate art of shaping stone with precision. One day, Khepri surprises Setka with a block of limestone, a larger, unblemished piece. "This is yours," he says. "Show me what the whispers have taught you." Setka hesitates at first, afraid of failure, but Khepri's encouragement gives him the confidence to begin. Over several days, Setka carves a depiction of the Nile, flanked by reeds and teeming with life. Though imperfect, it is filled with heart and imagination. When Setka presents his work to Khepri, the artisan gazes at it for a long moment before speaking. "You have carved more than just stone, Setka. You have carved a piece of yourself, a reflection of your spirit. The sands are proud of you, as am I." Setka beams with pride, and the bond between the two deepens. Khepri continues to mentor him, sensing that Setka has the potential to become not just an artisan but a storyteller through stone, a legacy that mirrors Khepri's own. Over time, Setka's growing skills begin to draw attention from others at the site. The laborers cheer him on, and even Neferhotep takes an interest in his work. The boy, once overlooked, begins to find his place among the artisans, his spirit buoyed by Khepri's unwavering belief in him. As the months pass, Khepri and Setka's relationship evolves into one of deep mutual respect and genuine affection, transcending the roles of mentor and student. Khepri, who once worked in solitude, now finds joy in sharing his craft with someone so eager to learn. For Setka, Khepri is not only a teacher but a guiding star, someone who sees potential in him that no one else has ever recognized. Setka begins to accompany Khepri in quiet moments outside of work. The two often sit together on the dunes after long days at the site, their conversations weaving between the mysteries of the cosmos and the everyday struggles of life. Khepri listens patiently as Setka shares his hopes and fears. Setka, in turn, finds himself inspired by Khepri's humility and unwavering devotion to his craft. One evening, as they sit under the vast expanse of stars, Khepri shares a piece of his own history, a story he rarely speaks of. "When I was your age," he says, his voice soft but steady, "I doubted myself, much like you do. I feared my hands weren't skilled enough, that my work would never matter. But my father once told me, the gods do not measure a man by his accomplishments, but by the sincerity of his efforts. Those words stayed with me, and they guide me even now." Setka absorbs this wisdom, feeling a newfound determination take root within him. Encouraged by Khepri, he begins to experiment with more complex carvings, often drawing upon the teachings and whispers of the sands. His work, though still raw, starts to reflect an emerging voice, his own unique connection to the divine. Over time, the bond between them deepens, shaped by shared experiences. When Setka struggles with a particularly challenging carving, Khepri is there to guide him, offering both technical advice and spiritual encouragement. When Khepri finds himself burdened by the enormity of his work, Setka surprises him with a thoughtful gesture, a simple carving of a scarab beetle carrying a star. "You always carry the cosmos on your back," Setka says with a grin. Khepri laughs, touched by the boy's insight and creativity. Their connection also begins to ripple outward, influencing others at the site. The laborers notice Setka's growing confidence and skill, and many credit Khepri's mentorship for the change. Even Neferhotep, ever the quiet observer, remarks to Khepri one day, "You're shaping more than stone, my friend. You're shaping a legacy." By the time the pharaoh's tomb nears completion, Setka has become a capable artisan in his own right. Though he still looks to Khepri for guidance, their relationship has transformed into a partnership, two souls united by their love for the craft and their reverence for the eternal. On the final evening of the project, as the site is bathed in the amber glow of torches, Setka presents Khepri with a final gift. A carving of the celestial ladder, each rung adorned with symbols of their shared journey, the lotus of awakening, the scarab of transformation, and the stars of the eternal. "You've given me more than I could ever repay," Setka says, his voice filled with emotion. "This is my way of thanking you." Khepri, deeply moved, places a hand on Setka's shoulder. "The greatest gift you've given me is your belief in yourself," he replies. "The whispers of the sands spoke to you long before we met. All I did was help you hear them." As they stand together, gazing at the work they have created, both the carvings on the tomb and the bond between them, Khepri and Setka feel an unspoken understanding pass between them. It is a connection that will endure, just as their carvings will, whispering stories to the sands and stars for generations to come. Khepri stood in the tomb's vast chamber, his fingers tracing the grooves of his latest creation. The smooth limestone seemed to hum beneath his touch, as though alive with the energy of the symbols he had etched into its surface. This panel depicted the celestial bark of Ra traversing the heavens, flanked by constellations and guarded by serpents. Yet, to Khepri, the scene was more than mythology. It was a mirror of his own journey, a reminder of the soul's voyage through the trials of life and into the embrace of the eternal. In these moments, Khepri felt the weight of his purpose. He was not merely an artisan shaping stone, he was a storyteller, a guide, a bridge between worlds. His carvings were prayers, offerings to the gods, and gifts to those who would one day pass through this tomb in awe. They were whispers of the desert's wisdom, carried on grains of sand through time. As Khepri worked, the whispers seemed louder now, almost tangible. He paused, his chisel hovering over the stone, and closed his eyes. The sound of the Nile's gentle flow filled his ears, mingling with the rustle of papyrus and the distant call of an ibis. These were the voices of the sands, speaking to him not in words, but in a language of harmony and interconnectedness. Opening his eyes, Khepri resumed his work with renewed clarity. His next panel would be the scales of Ma'at, a delicate composition where balance and truth would be symbolized in every line. The feather of Ma'at would rest lightly on one side, the human heart on the other. Khepri's hand moved with purpose, each stroke of the chisel a testament to the moral journey of humanity and the cosmic order upheld by justice. Yet, as he worked, Khepri's thoughts turned inward. He wondered whether his own heart would balance the scales. He was a man of faith and dedication, yet he knew he was not without flaws. The act of carving became a meditation, each symbol he inscribed a step toward understanding himself and his place within the grand design. When the panel was complete, Khepri stepped back to admire his work. The scales glowed softly in the torchlight, their lines seeming to pulse with life. He felt a quiet satisfaction, but also a deep humility. These carvings were not his alone, they were shaped by the whispers of the sands, the teachings of his elders, and the quiet guidance of something greater than himself. As he prepared to leave for the night, Khepri noticed Setka lingering nearby, his eyes fixed on the newly completed panel. The boy's face was a mixture of wonder and determination. "The scales remind us all to live truthfully," Khepri said, placing a hand on Setka's shoulder. "But remember, they also remind us to forgive ourselves when we falter." Setka nodded, the words sinking deeply into his heart. Together, they walked out into the cool desert night, the stars above them shining like the eternal truths Khepri sought to honor with every stroke of his chisel. As the days turned into weeks, the tomb of the pharaoh neared completion, and the whispers of the sands seemed to grow louder in Khepri's soul. The final task before him was the most significant, a carving that would adorn the central chamber, where the pharaoh's sarcophagus would rest. It was to be a depiction of the pharaoh's journey through the Duat, the realm of the afterlife. Khepri approached this work with reverence, knowing that every line and curve must resonate with the pharaoh's divine legacy. He envisioned the pharaoh's spirit sailing through the 12 gates of the Duat, facing trials and emerging reborn into the eternal sunrise. In the center of the scene, Khepri planned to carve the great sun disk of Ra, its rays extending outward to touch every corner of the composition, symbolizing the light of creation reaching all things. Setka watched intently as Khepri began this monumental work. The boy had come far in his own craft, his carvings now displaying a refinement and depth that impressed even the senior artisans. Yet he felt humbled as he observed Khepri's chisel moving with a precision and purpose that seemed almost otherworldly. "Khepri," Setka said quietly one evening as they worked side by side, "how do you carry the weight of such responsibility? I would be terrified to create something so important." Khepri paused, his chisel resting against the stone, and turned to Setka with a calm smile. "I feel that weight, too," he admitted. "But the pharaoh's journey is not mine alone to tell. The whispers of the sands guide my hands, and the stars lend their light. I am simply a vessel for their wisdom." Encouraged by these words, Setka asked if he could contribute to the central carving. Khepri hesitated at first, knowing the gravity of the task, but he saw the earnest determination in Setka's eyes. Encouraged by these words, Setka asked if he could contribute to the central carving. Khepri hesitated at first, knowing the gravity of the task, but he saw the earnest determination in Setka's eyes. "Very well," Khepri said at last. "But remember, Setka, this is not about perfection. It is about truth. Let your heart guide you." Setka chose to carve a single figure, a small scarab beetle nestled near the base of the composition. To him, the scarab symbolized transformation and the strength to endure life's challenges. As his chisel shaped the stone, he felt a connection to the ancient stories Khepri had shared, and to the cosmos that had always felt so vast and unattainable. When the carving was complete, Khepri stepped back to examine the work. The sun disk of Ra radiated with an almost tangible energy, its light embracing the pharaoh's journey through the Duat. And there, at the foundation, was Setka's scarab, a quiet but powerful symbol of the resilience and hope that carried both rulers and commoners alike through the trials of existence. "It is perfect," Khepri said softly, his voice filled with pride. "You have honored the pharaoh, the gods, and yourself, Setka." The unveiling of the tomb was a solemn occasion. Priests chanted hymns to the gods as the pharaoh's sarcophagus was placed within its resting chamber. Those who entered were awestruck by the carvings that adorned the walls, their intricate details telling stories of eternity. Among the visitors was Beck, the overseer, who lingered before the central carving with a look of quiet reverence. In the years that followed, Khepri and Setka's bond only deepened. They worked together on new projects, their partnership an enduring testament to the legacy of mentorship and shared purpose. And though time would eventually reclaim their names, their carvings remained, a gift to the future, etched in stone and whispered through the sands. As the years went by, the bond between Khepri and Setka became legendary among the artisans and laborers of their time. Their partnership was not just a collaboration of craft, but an intertwining of spirits, each enriching the other's journey. Together, they took on new projects that continued to weave the divine and mortal realms into stone. The towering block of stone stood waiting in the center of the temple grounds, its sheer presence commanding reverence even in its raw form. It had taken months of labor to transport the obelisk to this sacred space, and now it was Khepri and Setka's shared responsibility to transform it into a beacon of divine connection. As they stood before it, the magnitude of the task was palpable, yet neither faltered. Khepri saw in the obelisk a bridge between worlds, the earth from which it had been hewn, the hands that would shape it, and the heavens it would eventually reach toward. Setka, standing beside him, felt a deep sense of awe. "This stone is like a sleeping giant," he said. "We must wake it gently." Khepri smiled at the poetic truth in Setka's words. "Indeed. Let us listen to its whispers." The two began by sketching the design, each line carefully considered. Khepri focused on the celestial imagery that would adorn the upper half of the obelisk, Ra's sun disk radiating light, constellations stretching across the heavens, and Nut's protective form arching over the cosmos. Setka, guided by Khepri's teachings, concentrated on the earthly elements, the Nile flowing with abundance, the reeds swaying in the breeze, and the people drawing life from the river's eternal gift. When the carving began, the temple grounds became a symphony of sound. The rhythmic taps of chisels against stone, the rustle of leaves in the wind, and the distant calls of ibis birds. Khepri and Setka worked side by side, their movements harmonizing as if choreographed by unseen forces. Their combined effort felt almost sacred, as though the stone itself guided their hands. Khepri's work on the celestial imagery was a dance of precision. Each star he carved seemed to pulse with energy, each ray of light from Ra's disk radiated with life. He paused often to observe the play of light and shadow, ensuring that the carvings would catch the sun's rays at dawn and dusk, casting patterns of brilliance across the temple grounds. Setka, meanwhile, poured his heart into the earthly scenes. His depiction of the Nile was alive with movement, its waters seeming to ripple and flow as the light shifted. The reeds swayed with a gentle grace, and the figures along the riverbanks, farmers, fishers, and families, bore expressions of quiet joy and gratitude. To Setka, this was not merely a depiction of life. It was a tribute to the people who drew strength from the land and gave it back in return. As the weeks turned into months, the obelisk began to take on a life of its own. The celestial and earthly elements merged seamlessly, each enhancing the other. At the base of the obelisk, Khepri and Setka carved a shared motif: the scarab beetle, carrying the sun disk on its back. It was their signature, a symbol of transformation and the eternal journey of life. When the obelisk was completed, it stood as a masterpiece of artistry and spirituality. At dawn, the rising sun illuminated Ra's disk, casting golden light that seemed to flow down the stone like a divine blessing. At dusk, the earthly carvings came alive in the amber glow, their intricate details highlighted by the play of shadows. The obelisk seemed to speak, its carvings whispering stories of creation, harmony, and eternity. The unveiling ceremony was a moment of profound reverence. Priests chanted hymns to the gods, laborers and artisans gathered in awe, and visitors from neighboring regions marveled at the obelisk's beauty. Khepri and Setka stood together, their faces lit with quiet pride. For Khepri, the obelisk was a culmination of a lifetime's devotion, a bridge between the heavens and the earth. For Setka, it was a testament to his journey from a humble laborer to an artisan with a voice of his own. As the sun set on the day of the unveiling, the whispers of the sands seemed to echo more clearly than ever. Khepri and Setka, standing in the shadow of their shared masterpiece, felt a deep sense of fulfillment. "We have given the gods a gift," Khepri said softly. "And they have given us their blessing." As the obelisk became a central figure in the temple grounds, its presence grew beyond its initial purpose. It was no longer just a testament to Khepri and Setka's craftsmanship. It evolved into a living symbol, deeply embedded in the lives of the people. By day, sunlight danced upon its surface, illuminating the stories etched into the stone. Farmers and merchants passing by would pause to look up, their faces reflecting quiet reverence as they traced the patterns of Ra's radiant disk, the celestial constellations, and the flowing Nile. Some would bring their children, pointing out the carvings as they told stories passed down from their ancestors, stories of gods and men, balance and renewal, earth and sky. The obelisk also became a place of solace and reflection. Beneath its shadow, individuals would find peace, their worries quieted by the harmony of its imagery. Pilgrims seeking guidance would sit at its base, running their fingers over the carved scarab, feeling a connection to the cycles of transformation and rebirth it represented. It became a sacred space where the whispers of the sands seemed more audible, offering comfort and clarity to those who listened. During festivals dedicated to Ra and Nut, the obelisk stood as the centerpiece of the celebrations. Priests adorned it with garlands of lotus flowers and reeds, while musicians played hymns that echoed through the temple grounds. At dawn and dusk, the light would cast intricate patterns from the carvings onto the ground, creating a celestial dance that left onlookers in awe. The interplay of light and shadow seemed to breathe life into the stone, as if the gods themselves were present. Even in quiet moments, the obelisk exerted its influence. Artisans and scribes would gather around it for inspiration, their works drawing on the spiritual depth of its carvings. Scholars attempted to decode the layers of meaning in its design, marveling at how it seamlessly blended celestial and earthly elements. "This is not just a monument," one scholar wrote. "It is a conversation between the heavens and humanity, a dialogue that spans eternity." The obelisk's presence extended beyond the temple grounds. Its fame spread to distant lands, drawing travelers who wished to witness its grandeur. They would return to their homes with tales of its beauty, carrying its whispers to new ears. Over time, the obelisk became a symbol not just of the temple but of the unity it represented, the interconnectedness of all life, bound by the light of creation and the flow of the eternal Nile. The people of the region began to see the obelisk as a silent guardian. When the annual floods of the Nile were particularly bountiful, they left offerings at its base, thanking the gods for their blessings. When the rains were scarce, they gathered there to pray, finding hope and resilience in its enduring presence. For them, the obelisk was more than stone, it was a companion, a guide, and a keeper of their collective soul. As centuries passed, the obelisk stood steadfast against the sands of time, its carvings weathered but still powerful. Though the people who had created it were long gone, their legacy endured in the stories etched into its surface. It continued to whisper its truths to those who paused to listen, a bridge between past and present, earth and sky, the mortal and the divine. As the centuries passed, the obelisk stood as an unwavering sentinel, its surface weathered but still powerful. Its carvings bore the marks of time, yet their essence remained vibrant, continuing to whisper stories of creation, harmony, and transformation to those who paused to listen. The temple around it evolved as generations came and went, yet the obelisk endured. It became more than a symbol, it was a keeper of memory, a reminder of the unity between humanity and the divine. Travelers from far-flung lands would marvel at its beauty, their hands tracing the grooves left by Khepri and Setka long ago. Scholars would debate its meanings, artisans would find inspiration in its design, and pilgrims would kneel before it, seeking solace and connection. Though Khepri and Setka's names eventually faded into the obscurity of history, their legacy remained alive in the stone. Unseen by those who came after, the scarab at the obelisk's base carried their shared spirit, a quiet yet eternal symbol of resilience, transformation, and the bond between mentor and student. One moonlit night, long after the world had changed, a traveler sat beneath the obelisk's shadow. He closed his eyes and listened to the desert wind. Perhaps it was his imagination, or perhaps it was something more, but he thought he heard faint whispers carried on the breeze, whispers of sands, stars, and lives intertwined. He smiled, feeling a quiet peace settle over him. The obelisk, standing tall against the endless sky, continued its watch, its stories etched not only in stone but in the hearts of all who had heard its whispers. Thank you for being a part of Calm Cloud Chronicles. What kind of stories help you relax the most? Please let us know in comments below. If you enjoyed this story, let us know by liking, sharing, and subscribing. Until next time, stay peaceful and keep dreaming.